Today we're back in Dragonheir Silent Gods, and I'm gonna help you climb the arena like a freaking champion, or at least doing better than you are today, so that you can get those sweet, sweet rewards in the arena shop. Now, if you haven't actually seen Dragonheir Silent Gods before, this is a Western fantasy-themed open-world role-playing game with some pretty classic D&D style mechanics and tabletop gaming vibes like dice rolling, for example. In fact, there is actually a Dungeons & Dragons collaboration going on right now, actually started November 17th, 2023, for Dragonheir Silent Gods, where you can unlock the very iconic Drizzt Do'Urden. And this collaboration has actually been featured on Facebook. You can actually see some of that footage playing behind me right now. So go to the official Facebook page to check out more information about that, linked in the description. You can actually consume Heliolite dice to participate in the Planeswalker summoning for a chance to get the event's exclusive hero, Drizzt Do'Urden. And you can even use him against Urtu, a new boss fight introduced specifically for this event, giving you a chance to join D&D's legends in Dragonheir Silent Gods. Be sure to go and get your special cosmetics during this collaboration for your D20 and D4 dice. You're not going to want to miss out on cosmetics. I mean, hey, look, the flare I really enjoy. And in case you haven't actually downloaded Dragonheir Silent Gods, use the link in the description. It's available on iOS, Android, Mac, Steam, and the Epic Games Store. A big thank you to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video, and you can now join the over 10 million downloads. That is a lot of downloads for Dragonheir Silent Gods, locking it in as a top spot in more than 10 regions since its recent global launch. So, on the topic of arena, let's talk really quickly about why it is you want to climb an arena. We're going to talk about the arena shop and the arena currency. There are actually two types of seals that you can get that are used to exchange in this shop to buy rewards. The first is the gladiatorial seal, which you can get from the regular Grand Gladiator Arena, as well as team competition seals that you can get from the team arena. Now, by the way, a lot of the footage that is going to be behind me is me climbing an arena, so enjoy all that combat, baby. That's what you're here to watch, right? So I'll briefly flash to the things that I'm talking about. For the most part, I actually just want to show you some arena climbing, all right? So you can earn these seals only from wins in arena fights, as well as weekly rewards based on your arena rank at the end of each week. Now, I highly advise you buy the discounted Essence of Creation, as well as the Heliolite dice, because obviously, and Master Scrolls. These will give you the most value, and if you have any extra seals, I would also buy the other Essence of Creations that are not discounted, especially if you're like a lower spender that isn't summoning as much. Therefore, you aren't able to get as much essence to level up your artifacts. Now, on to the really juicy stuff. How do you start winning more? First, we're going to talk about some heroes that you can build around for your team. And then we'll talk about some positioning tips. And lastly, what gear you should be looking for. By the way, of course, you can use the timestamps in the description of this video to jump to whichever part you might need the most for your team. As I mentioned, I'm going to throw some arena fights in the background as I'm explaining the current meta strategies, and you're going to see my Hivitar do some serious work. But the hero we actually need to talk about, if you've seen the mid to high ranks in arena, the build-around hero is Sigrid. Sigrid works wonders in the arena as the main carry, and here is why. If you take a look at her skills, her passive and her ult are the real game changers. Her passive states that whenever an enemy with a debuff dies, Sigrid gains 25% ultimate energy. And secondly, her ultimate will deal damage to any enemy that has a debuff inflicted on them. So we can pair Sigrid with some pretty crazy AoE debuffers and get some big, fast-paced damage going. The one thing to note is that Arena is all about skill haste. Big, fast-paced damage and taking turns before your enemies. You may remember a couple videos ago that I actually talked about the Rift Hourglass legendary artifact. This is where it's absolutely busted in Arena because it gives your wearer so much skill haste. Now, with all that said, the core composition of most Arena teams is actually pretty simple. You're going to run one tank. So for the early game, that could be Horus or any other sort of tanky unit that you manage to summon. You want Sigrid, obviously, paired with 2 AoE debuffers, and you then want either another backup damage dealer or healer, like Hexandra. Some of the best AoE debuffers that work with Sigrid in the epic and rare tier are Yoresh, Dane, Iola, or really anyone that has a large diamond shape or full board AoE. You want to make sure that your debuffer casts before Sigrid, otherwise her ultimate is basically wasted. And you can actually specifically time this by clicking on your heroes and their ultimate abilities and seeing what their initial recharge time is. That is how long it's going to take before their first skill pops. So you need your debuffers to cast before your Sigrid casts. You can do this by adding skill haste set bonuses to your debuffers or skill haste substat runes, so their initial recharge time is lower. Other than helping Sigrid, your debuffers are still really important in Arena, and stacking debuffs onto your enemy team, as well as, also applying buffs onto your own team, will make or break some fights. So attack penalty 2, for example, is completely nuts, especially to counter the other Sigrid comps that are out there, because their ultimate will go from a one-shot to about half health, depending on your stats. So this is like a really game-changing effect. Accuracy penalty is honestly super underrated as well, because, if they don't have enough accuracy to land their debuffs, then they're just going to get wrecked. This is also where resistance can come into play, and having high resistance on some of your important units to stop them from being debuffed can be quite good. I mean, there's honestly a lot you can do to play around with your team composition once you get to the top end of things and you're understanding deeply kind of what it is that you're trying to counter. And while Sigrid is really strong, the higher you climb, the more diverse teams you're going to start to face, and you need to be ready to tackle some unique compositions and strategies. So some strategies that people like to use, for example, is a stall team, where they have 2 tanks and 3 supports, and their goal is not to kill your attack team, but instead to heal, shield, and resurrect through your damage until time runs out. So they time you out. And in that case, the defense team will win. Another strategy is what some people are calling a jumper team. These are heroes that have battle or ultimate skills that allow them to jump onto a backline unit, deal tons of damage to them. And an example of this is at the epic tier will be Carmen, the wildfire unit. But there are also some teams that counter jumper teams that like to invis their back line. So something like Thea, who's an epic necrosis unit, her ultimate skill is super short. It's around 9 seconds at base. And she'll invis her whole team while giving them debuff immunity. These are just some standard team setups that either you might run into or you might even consider making, depending on which of these heroes you've gotten. They can definitely counter some very specific compositions. So now that we've got team compositions out of the way, how should you actually position your defense? As I've got up on the screen, you want to replicate something similar to this that will work against a lot of teams you're going to face in a lot of fights, but feel free to move around some units depending on, what you're up against, right? So for example, if they have a 3-tile forward AoE that's going to hit your Sigrid, you might want to move your Sigrid to the other side, right? Some of this stuff is kind of obvious, but in this setup, you want your most important unit to be in the top left corner with another support unit underneath them. Your tank should be in the front line, but on the 3rd tile from the bottom, with your tankiest support being on the 2nd tile in the bottom row with another support behind them. The reason is that you want to bait out their diamond-shaped AoE skills from the enemy team by making them focus your tank or your tankiest support. That way they're not able to touch your debuffer and your main backline. So I know that might have sounded a little complicated for where you're positioning these folks, but there's actually a lot of strategy to it. Of course, some teams are going to have, the full board AoE and okay, well, wherever you put your heroes in that configuration, they're going to get you, right? So the last thing we can talk about is gear. And I want to go over this just very briefly. Some of the main sets you want to look out for are the Holy Hunter set, the Executioner's set, and the Platinum Knight set. The Holy Hunter set really shines its best in PvP, where the 3-piece bonus gives the wearer a chance to stun whoever they hit with their ultimate. That's big. It is absolutely crucial to have one of these on your AoE supports. Like I said before, stunning the enemy team so that yours can cast first will matter a lot. Okay? Look, Arena's all about speed, all right? The other 2 sets are for damage dealers and can be swapped out. Like the Platinum Knight has, a lot of benefits with its 3-piece bonus, but the only downside is the potential wasted stat on Enlightenment in the 2-piece bonus may not work on the majority of the heroes you're interested in. If, however, you had an Executioner set, it also works super well, especially against teams that are stacking defense. Some other things to look out for include, for example, on chess pieces, you might want to hoard up a few with accuracy and resistance, which people tend to look over. They overlook those. On supports, although you want accuracy to apply those debuffs, you should also be looking out for them to deal a lot of damage. So for someone like Vorash, who's regarded as one of the best epic supports in the game, having 100% crit with the Holy Hunter set, and an accuracy chess piece with accuracy negative rune and a crit damage positive rune, he's not only going to be doing a ton of debuffs, but he's also going to do a ton of damage. And that's really where it's at for those supports. In cases where Sigrid would otherwise have been jumped in one shot, these fights can potentially be turned around because of your properly optimized supports. Before we wrap up today's video, I just want to do a quick review of the summoning banners that are available. Firstly, let's just do a quick reminder on how to obtain Dritz Do Erden. You're going to go and do a bunch of quests that are going to give you Hunter's Blades. Also, when you summon, you get Hunter's Blades. For this specific summoning, the only legendary you can get is Dritz. So when you go in, you're pulling specifically for him, but the chances are in fact lower than normal. Instead of the 3% you normally have, it's only 0.5%. And if you want to guarantee that you're going to get him, it's going to take an absolute maximum of 40 dice if you're super unlucky to unlock your Dritz. Another banner that we've currently got running in my server is the Celestial Alternate Summons 6. Now, if you have 35 dice, you may want to pull from this banner. There's actually quite a few good legendaries here. My personal favorite picks would be Philosia, Losenya, Gulend, and Sagomir. Actually, all really good fits for endgame teams. So as far as banners go, that's actually a lot of heroes that you might want to go for. As a quick reminder, if you're enjoying the Dragonheir Silent God series on the channel, smash the like button on the video. A big thank you to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video. And again, use the links in the description, either to check out the socials, like I was describing earlier, the promotions on Facebook that are going on, or you can download the game on iOS, Android, Mac, and the Steam store and the Epic Games store. There's so many places. I play in a very cross-platform way. When I'm at home, I'm on my PC, and when I'm out and about, I've got the same account running on my iPhone. All right, so you can download to multiple devices if you like and play on the same account. So download Dragonheir today to participate in the limited time Dungeons & Dragons events and join the Dungeons & Dragons legends in Dragonheir Silent Gods. If you're looking for other videos about Dragonheir Silent Gods, for example, my guide on equipment, or if you just want to see me do some pulls, because who doesn't like to see some pulls? Card will be in the end screen in just a second, and until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.